Well, hello, welcome to Morphite Ministries, our YouTube channel, and wherever else I can get this uploaded. I probably won't do this as an audio only because it's not going to make much sense because I'm showing a lot of things on the screen. So bear with me. This is my first time doing one of these, and so it's probably going to be messy, but we're gonna learn it. Praise God. Thank you so much for joining. If you're watching this, please go ahead and do all the things. You know what to do. I don't like to spend a lot of time doing promo and all that stuff. So if you like this, do what the Lord leads you to do as far as sharing it and as far as following it and all those kind of things. So today, you probably see from the title, we're going to get into some quick live Bible study. I'm going to open this up here. I was led by the Lord to start doing these videos like this. This one isn't actually live, as you've noticed already, because I may put it as a premiere if I can, but the YouTube channel's too new and I had to request going live and all that fun stuff. So this one won't be going live on there, but I will be putting it out on all the channels, and I'll probably, if I don't have it set up already, I'll go ahead and make sure we're coming out on Rumble, we're coming out on all the platforms, doing all the things. So turn this down. All right. So, and there will be background noise. This is my apartment. This is gonna, like I said, it's gonna be messy, but praise God, we're gonna learn some things. All right. So I had this question come up to me. Actually, it's funny, from both my wife and my brother at different times in the recent past, and that's why I wanted to start off with this, because it's kind of a fun, just lighthearted topic as far as what we're dealing with and what we're looking at. And I felt the Lord lead me that He wanted me to show how I study and how to talk about studying and how do you dig into the Word and some of the tools that are available. So we're going to go into some of that. We'll see how long this video ends up being, but I'll talk about some of the tools that I use and some of the things that I go into. And some of them I won't be able to show you because I don't have a way exactly of sharing my screen as of yet on my phone, but I'll hold it up and I'll talk about that a little bit, because I end up using a lot of the tools on my phone to study with much quicker and much easier than I do on the computer. Just as you know, we're just used to sliding and swiping and all that stuff. So the question I was given was, what is the difference between Sabbath and Sabaoth? They're very similar sounding words in English, Sabbath, Sabaoth. There's only one letter difference. And a lot of times when you look up words like that in the original language, they are the same word, or they are translated slightly different, but they're related and these kind of things. So it would be very easy to just assume, well, those must be related, or they're the same word, and maybe it's different in Hebrew than it is in Greek, and so they just spelled a little differently. But those words are not the same thing at all, and we're going to look at that today. So the first place I pulled up was one of the places, if you look for like King James Bible, looking online, trying to find a King James Bible, literally the URL is kingjamesbibleonline.org. And that is this, what I've got pulled up right here. Yep, this is all working. Okay, awesome. And I'll put all this stuff will be in the links below. All of these tools that I'm using, I'm going to put in the links below so that you can access them yourself and use them for your own Bible study. Because one of the main thrusts, one of the main focuses of this channel, of this ministry, Morphite Ministries, is to get you in the Word, to get you studying, to get you knowing more about God. So I want to equip and help people as best as I can to do that. So that's why we're talking about this today. And we'll talk more about other things on other videos as far as, specific studies I'm doing or that God's shown me, that kind of thing. So it is a simple question, right? Sabbath versus Sabaoth. Now, one of the things you could do very easily and quickly is to just go to a dictionary and look it up and just say, well, here's Sabbath, here's Sabaoth. All right, but we're looking at Bible study tools specifically. So I'm not even going to show you that because you know how to do that. Go on YouTube and search how to search in the dictionary, and it'll say go on Google and type in what you want to know. All right. And you can also do that too, right? As a good starting place, I do use tools like Wikipedia or just a basic search just to get my head around what am I looking at when I get a question like this of something maybe I'm unfamiliar with, I'm confused about. Maybe someone else has done a video on it already, or has an article or what have you. So I'll do a search. I'll do a check out. Okay, what's the definition of the word? Those kind of basic things. But if you want to actually dig into stuff a little bit, that's what I'm going to be talking about here. So this tool is pretty nice. It's not everything. I use King James Bible Online if I am online to do just a quick reference back and forth between verses, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But I don't use this as like a deep study tool very often. Usually I go to King James Bible Online if I just want to look up a verse and I don't have my Bible in front of me, or I'll remember the words that are in a verse. A lot of times that's how the Lord brings stuff to mind is, oh, I remember the phrase, I remember like one word, I remember whatever. And instead of just searching it on Google or on a search engine, I go right to King James Bible because, and of course, obviously, I prefer King James as my main version. I don't use exclusively the King James, and that's a whole discussion of itself. But if you search for a verse or a reference, Matthew 5:18 or whatever, on Google or one of the other search engines, they tend to favor the versions and articles and things that fit into their worldview. And you'll find that with any search engine anymore. Their their algorithms are no longer objective. They're no longer based around trying to get you to the best version of the information that you need. They are built around trying to fit you and mold you into their worldview. And if you don't believe me, just try searching random terms and topics and comparing between them, like who is Mohammed, and then search who is Jesus Christ and see the way that they present that information to you and the types of articles and the types of definitions that come up. Like I said, another quick place to go to is Wikipedia when you're just wanting to get started, to get your head around a concept of like, okay, what is this? What kind of things are out there? You can dig through the links that they've got down below as their sources, and just a starting point. I never recommend looking at what you found on Google or on Wikipedia or a source like that as the end all be all about a topic, because again, they're going to be biased, they're going to be tailored and subjective in the way that they present the information. So here's how to find it for yourself. All right, I'm going to quit babbling and we're going to get into it. So I searched the word Sabbath. So when you go to King James Bible Online, make sure this is working because I can't see it at the same time. I will get a second monitor eventually. Okay, it's working. Cool. All right, they have their thing, whatever. I just typed it in the search box here. So I searched for Sabbath. All right, so it came up here and it's showing me some verses that talk about Sabbath. The first place it shows is Exodus 31. Now, these are not sorted by biblical order. I'm not sure what their search algorithm does exactly. You can, of course, limit it. You say, I only want to search in the Old Testament. I only want to search in the New Testament. I only want to search with Jesus' words. You can use it as a phrase match, partial word match, fuzzy search using Google, etc. And they'll show you here what it means. Word search or word match will do precisely as typed. If you type love, it won't match loved or beloved. If typing a phrase, the order of words doesn't affect the search results. Now, this is a key thing: is no matter what tool you're using, try to make sure you understand the way it's searching, because sometimes you might be trying to find like a word that rhymes with another word. So you might search like you wanted something that rhymes with love, so you search OVE. Well, if that's not an actual word by itself and you searched using word match, for example, on this tool, you're never going to find a rhyming word. But maybe you can use the partial word match. For single words, this search will also find alternate suffixes. For example, searching love will match the word loved, but not beloved. It's best used for single word searches, not phrases, and works only with words 3 characters or longer. Fuzzy search is the broadest but lowest accuracy search. Fuzzy search is, again, another place I like to start with sometimes if I'm just expanding around a whole concept and I'm just kind of winging my way through it as far as what is this, what are related terms, and I'll show you in some of the other tools, some of the other resources, what I'll use this for, this kind of thing for sometimes. But typically, if I already know, okay, Sabbath is a word, I know it's in a verse, Sabaoth is a word, I know it's in a verse, I'll just stick with the basic word match. And again, this is not my main research tool by any means. King James Bible Online, I'm just showing you how it works. So Exodus 31:16, I'll go to that verse. This is one thing I like about it. If I do remember just a verse and it shows you here, okay, here's the verse, wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout the generations for perpetual covenant. All right, cool. So now I have the verse, I have the word. That doesn't really tell me anything about what it means other than the context of this verse. And I'm not going to get into that method of study here. I'm just going to teach you about word definitions today. So, one of the cool things about the Bible, one of the cool things, is that it was written in Hebrew and Greek, Aramaic, and every word in the scripture that is a separate word has been indexed using what is called the Strong's Index. And Strong, I don't remember his first name. Maybe print it on here. I've got a physical copy of the. Let's spell this. I've got a physical copy here. Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. Boom. Oh yeah, you can see it. Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. So this is a tool you can use physically to do what I'm about to show you how to do digitally. Obviously, it's a lot faster and simpler in many ways to do it through the computer or on your phone using these digital tools. But if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, which I enjoy doing sometimes, I'll pull out and look up all this stuff manually, physically. You got to spread it all out on the table, but it's a lot of fun. So what Strong's though is there will be, for every word that's in Greek, that's in Hebrew, there will be a reference for it. So it'll be G for Greek and H for Hebrew, and then it'll have a number after it. And that number is just an indexed number to that word. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and I'll talk about this more as we go into it, is that those words are not the definition or the usage of that word in context. It's just a basic definition of that word. And actually, more so, what Strong shows you is not even the definition, but more the ways that word has been translated into the English language. And we'll look at that in a moment. So it's an excellent research tool, even if you don't use the definitions that Strong's gives you. It gives you a reference point where you say, okay, this Greek word, this Hebrew word, if I don't know Greek or Hebrew, I can still know, hey, I'm looking at H264. And so every time I look it up, most of the other tools that you find, concordances and those kind of things, will use the same indexing. We'll use that strong number to be able to find that exact term, even if they give you different information about it. And I'll show you that in another one in a moment. All right, so here we have this. They've got other translations. They've got their own tools. I'm just going to give a quick overview for them because I don't use this as my main thing. If you hover over here, you can see they show you, hey, this is Hebrew word. This for Sabbath there that I'm looking at is a Strong's H7676, and it is Shabbat. Intermission specifically, the Sabbath intensive from H7673. I want to click it for more info. I can do that. And they have here and they've got, okay, again, I don't use this very often. They've got the Brown Driver Briggs, which is another dictionary, I believe they call it. Is it lexicon or dictionary? I think it's a dictionary that gives you some more information about this term. And then we've got a summary at the top here, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to go deep into these terms today. I'm just showing you the tool. Strong's Concordance, intensive from Shabbat. So there we see that this word is its own word, but it is based off of another word. So it is number H7676. We also know, though, that it comes from H7673. So if you're taking notes, or if you are compiling this information, copy pasting or whatever, that's where this is usually where I start from, is like, oh, okay, if I'm writing out my notes, I like to do most of my notes handwritten. I'll write down the name, I'll say Sabbath, and then I'll say this, I'll put down H7676, and then I'll say it's from H7673, and I'll put, like the definition that they have here, that it means intermission, specifically the Sabbath or every Sabbath, and just so I can understand what that term is. All right. As we can see here, Sabbath means Sabbath, which doesn't tell us a lot, but it's something. It's a start, right? It's intensive from Shabbat. It means intermission. Intermission is what he's shown here. Intermission. If, as we look in here, you've got all these different verses. It's the basis for God's resting, etc. I'm going to go more into the actual study of these words just real shortly, briefly, at the end when I get to the tool I actually like using more than this. So some people really like a specific tool. That's great. I'm stuck on this other tool right now, and it's just my favorite as far as on the computer. Okay, so we found Shabbat, and we found the term, and we know it is H7676. Okay, it's a good place to start. Now, what about Sabaoth? Is this word? Is this the same word? Is this a different word? Is it related? So I did a search. Sabaoth in the King James Bible only shows up twice in English. The Lord of Sabaoth had left us a seed in Romans, and then the Lord of Sabaoth is mentioned in James 5:4. So I'm going to go to Romans chapter 9, verse 29. And I'm going to do the same thing here. It says, Isaiah said before, except the Lord of Sabaoth had left us a seed, we'd been as Sodom had been made like it to Gomorrah. Okay, so I'm going to go down here where it splits out the words. It shows you the translation details right here. Isaiah said before, except the Lord Sabaoth. All right. Now this is in Greek, so we already know this is because it's in the New Testament. This is coming from a different language, so it's not going to be the same word. But let's see where it comes from. Sometimes, a lot of times, if it's a title or a word like this, it is a reference to a Hebrew word. So then that gives us another thread to go down. We see that it's Strong's number G4519. Okay. So that is not the same as H7676. We know it's Greek because of the G. This summary is showing us it means Sabaoth means armies. Let's see. Lord of armies of Hebrew origin, armies Sabaoth, i.e., Sabaoth, a military epithet of God. So this is a whole different idea. Yes, it has to do with God, but it's not anything to do with Saturday, Sabbath, end of the week, resting. It has none of those ideas built into its meaning. It only means, or means a separate. It's a separate whole idea. Military, armies. Okay, so already we see these are not the same term, but we can drill down a little more and figure out what they are then. What's really cool is we see this is actually from a Hebrew word. So we're going to go look up that as well in a minute when we get into these other tools. So that's King James Bible Online. You can continue on down the research you want to do in just that tool. It does have a lot of stuff. The main reason I prefer a different tool is because of the navigation. Most of these actually King James Bible Online, the one we're going to look at next, which is Blue Letter Bible, as well as the stepbible.org. I think it's just stepbible.org. Stepbible.org, yeah. They all have the same tools built into them as far as the concordance, Strong's, some tools for looking at different translations, those kind of things. I like comparing things right next to each other so I can go back and forth and see what I'm looking at. So that's why I prefer that specific tool. Let's go to Blue Letter Bible. Now, Blue Letter Bible, I've heard people recommend before. It is a very, very good tool as far as the amount of things available. It's also, as you can already see, just when I pull it up, it's got a lot going on. It's complex. There's a lot of different things. Let me just show you. So I searched at the top here. I typed in the word Sabbath, and then I said, okay, here's all the verses. So here's what it gives you, and it's got primary search, word search results, all the verses that have that verse. Then it's got dictionaries. It's got these different dictionaries that have all these different things. So you can go down all this rabbit hole. You can go to the lexicon, and here's all the different terms that show up in Greek and in Hebrew for Sabbath. So again, this is a very deep tool. It's very extensive. You can get all the information that you need about a word or about an idea in the scripture using this tool or this website. It's blueletterbible.org. Let me just show you quickly how you can look up some of this stuff. So here's Exodus 16:23. If you click on the tools button over here, it'll take you to that verse, and then it shows up these tools specific to that verse. So it's got interlinear, Bibles, cross references, commentaries, dictionaries, and miscellaneous. I don't know what's other miscellaneous. Oh, yeah, maps and images. Well, that's handy. And random images. Cool. So if you go here, it'll show you the Hebrew. It'll show you it's from the Masoretic text is the one that's used here because it's in the King James English translation. They use the Masoretic text for their translation. And if you go down these phrases here, it shows you these broken out, similar to the other one where it had them lined up, but here it has them in a column. So, and he said unto them, this is that which the Lord had said tomorrow. Let's go down to the word we want, Sabbath. So when we click on that word, oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's go back. Okay. Oh, here we are. I want to click on the Strong's. That's what it is. The Strong's reference for it. because if you click on that, it's going to do another word. It does a word search off of that. And this is what I was saying. It's Blue Letter Bible. You kind of got to get used to navigating around it. So H67676 takes us to the lexicon entry for this term in Hebrew. And again, this is the base form of that term. So if that is a verb or if that's a noun and it changes from plural to singular based, in a specific verse, it's used in plural, in another verse, it's used in singular, all these things, none of that's going to be told to you by this. Okay. This is just going to show you the term and the way it's translated, and depending on the other things it has here, more information about that term. Now you can, I just hit the back button, you can see here, you see where it's highlighted up there on the verse in Hebrew. So I can go here and see that. And let me see, does it tell me? Let's see, it's in Sabbath Hebrew, noun, common. It's both gender, it's singular, it's construct. Okay, what about, let me see if I can find a, oh, so it does have a pop-up too. Again, I don't use this tool as much. The reason I'm talking about all that is because if you go to the verbs, there we are, a verb, all right, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because I ran into this recently and I didn't know because I'm not a Hebrew scholar, but I use these tools to understand the original language. It's important when you're looking at a word what the stem is if it's a verb in Hebrew. So down here you see it says verb and it says QAL, call. So that means it is using that type of stem. And it's here you can see it's a call imperfect. These things affect the context and the usage of that word within the sentence that you see it in, right? Because if we go to, like this one, it says you will bake, right? If I go to H644, it's the word, it's a primitive root, it's a verb, and it's translated as bake, baker, bake meats. All right. Now, okay, now this is a good one, okay, because you can see here the difference. So it means to bake. So we know the idea of the word, right? It means to bake. However, does it mean to, in the sentence, does it mean to bake or does it mean to be baked? Right? Because depending on whether it's kal or nifal on the stem will tell us whether the person who is this verb applies to, or the subject this verb applies to, is doing the baking or is having the baking being done to it. And those are two entirely different things. If we go back to our verse here, let's see. Bake. Come on, there we go. Aser. Which word was it? Was it this one? Yeah, ipu. Which is, okay, the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord, bake that which ye will bake today. So in the context of this verse, if we didn't know the stem of this, or if we guessed improperly, or we just grabbed the first definition, the first concordance reference we can find for H644, we might translate this verse as, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Be baked that which ye will be baked today. So then it sounds like the people are supposed to be baking themselves. But we know that's not, doesn't make any sense for one thing. For another thing, it's not correct because this uses the QAL, which is called stem. Okay, that's just one little thing about the complexities of translation and looking at the original language. So if you can, it's good to get your head around some of these things. So when you look at it, it's easy to make some novice beginner mistakes when you just look at a term and then you're like, oh, that's Strong's H644. Therefore, it means bake meats because that word seems like it fits. And I'm just going to throw that in there because the King James translates 644 as bake meats. Well, it does one verse in a specific context, and it says combined with H4639. So that's not a great translation of that word by itself, right? And also doesn't affect or isn't affected by the context. It's not subjective to what's going on in the rest of the verse and the stem that's being used and all that. So we know, since that's QAL, that it means to bake. So the subject is the one doing the baking. So again, if we go back to our verse, we see that it is properly translated that the person that is being talked to, unto the Lord, bake that which ye will bake, right? That is a proper translation as far as the idea of the person who is being spoken to is the one doing the baking. They're not being baked upon. All right. So that's Blue Letter Bible. I'm not a fan of their layout, and maybe it's just me personally, my visual, this whole thing, the way this is laid out, like it's got too much information going on, and it's kind of just it's throwing me off the way that this information is being presented to me. So if you like Blue Letter Bible, that's great. It has, like I said, all the same tools and all the reference points, and we could, as I just showed you, has all of the information you need, the parts of speech, all that kind of stuff. If you're doing a word study like this. Okay, one really cool thing, and then I'll go to my personal favorite tool. If you're looking at something in Hebrew, a reference that I recently found that is amazing is called Ancient Hebrew Lexicon. It's by, I always forget his name, Jeff Benner. So this is ancient-hebrew.org. And if you go to the index, you see that he has an index of Strong's numbers. Now, these are only Hebrew. He doesn't have the Greek because this is specifically a Hebrew lexicon. All right. So what you'll need to do in order to use this properly, so I'll usually pull up this page on one tab, and then I'll pull up the verse I'm looking at in another tab. Here we are. Oh, well, that's Greek, so let's go back to a Hebrew word. All right. So the word for the rest is that where is it? Sabbath. H7676. That's the word we've been talking about, right? This is a noun, masculine, feminine. It's an intensive from H7673. So in Hebrew, the original Hebrew language, before it evolved into the way we see it today, with this kind of writing, it was a pictographic language. So a lot like the Egyptian, we see with the hieroglyphs and the little the images that are built into the language, or that is what the language is just drawings. Hebrew was the same way originally. And what's really cool about that is built into then every Hebrew word, every Hebrew letter is meaning that adds additional depth and additional understanding to then the translation or the definition of a given word. So let me show you that, because let me see. This is H7676. So I'm going to go back over to my ancienthebrew.org, and let's see if he has it in here. The reason I say if he has it in here is because the only words that he has indexed are going to be root words most of the time. I could be completely wrong about that. I'll just say there's a couple words I've tried to look up where he didn't have it broken down, but then he had the word that word was based on broken down. So we'll just see. I'll show you. So let's see. I'll go. It is H7676. So I'm going to go to over here in between these. Let's see if he's got this in here. 7676. Aha, it's there. All right. So you see here, and this is a little difficult to navigate, but the information here is priceless. You see here that this scroll up. No, okay. This is the let's see, ceasing of work, which comes from. Okay. Wow, is that really it all the way up there? So basically, with the way he breaks it down, it's the stem and the root, and then the words that are based on that, and then the words that may be based on that. So if you work your way backwards through his lexicon, you can see the relationships between the different letters and the relationships between words that are built upon other words, because a lot of the words are, I guess in English we'd consider them like a combination word, because it's combining several different ideas together. So just to go strictly to what we looked up, H7676 is right here, right? This is Shabbat, okay, so that's the word we're talking about, Sabbath. Translation would be ceasing. Definition would be a stopping of work or activity, an activity curtailed before completion. The seventh day of the week, often translated as Sabbath, when all business ceases for rest and celebration. And he shows here in the King James, it's translated as Sabbath, another, lost time, still, or cease. And then he's got the reference for the Hebrew, or the Strong's number here. If you go to the parent of that, because you see here, this is the term we're looking at, Shabbat, H7676. If you look at the parent of that, you see that it is the same, I believe, yeah, it's the same here. Definition: the ceasing of work or activity in order to rest. Relationship to its parent is sitting to rest. So then if you go all the way up, you scroll up until you get to the parent, and you can see it's kind of like indented in and out by what's related to what. So these are all words under this idea of an action: turn, draw, capture, sit, design, weave. The object is seat, well, captive, wreath, net, plate, bed. Abstract would be anguish or copulation. The definition would be: a place of dwelling is the place returned to, a turning back or away from someone or something. A captive is one turned away from a place of dwelling. Ancient Hebrew pictograph is a picture of the two front teeth representing pressing. The little squiggly, circly thing is a picture of a tent. Combined, these mean press to the tent. So that would be if you just have these two letters together. Which, forgive me, I'm again not a Hebrew scholar, and I always have to double check and check back what the names of the letters are over and over again. So I'm not going to bore you with continuing to do that over and over again because I always forget, and I'm getting used to the letters, but I do recognize them visually. So we see these two letters together mean that idea of pressing to the tent, an idea of home or going back, returning, right? And we see these two letters then are down in our, oh no, I've probably lost it. Here we are within, there they are again, they're within this word of Shabbat, and we have an extra letter as well here. So the reason I'm pointing you through all of this is that when you get deeper into a specific word in Hebrew, you start to understand the cultural context from their culture, their nomadic culture, and these are the people of God. And you also get to understand then the embedded layers of meaning. That's why I was showing you how you go back to the parent of that and then go back to the parent of that if it's a term that has a parent to it. You start to unravel then that there's meaning within meaning to these words in Hebrew specifically, that what we would translate just as the word Sabbath, and we would say, oh, that's Saturday, or oh, that's the seventh day of the week, whatever context we put it in our modern definition. That is one way of looking at it, but it doesn't give you the fullness of that term. We see here that term means ceasing. It means a stopping of work or activity. All business ceases. And then if you drill down even further, you see that it means sitting to rest. And if you go back to the parent term, you see that it means that term has the idea of returning or pressing to the tent. So you put all that together and you start to get this idea of, oh, Sabbath means you're returning to the tent. You're coming back to your place of dwelling. You are not going out to the field. You're not going out to the flocks. You are not doing other activities. You are pressing back to the tent, right? You are coming into a place of home, a place of dwelling, and specifically then this term, ceasing, stopping regular activity of the week. So all of that, again, I would be copying and pasting all of these things into my notes or writing them out as I'm studying a word. All of that is wrapped up in this one word. Okay, so that is ancient Hebrew. I know we've been going for, well, I don't know how long we've been going for.